All right, let's talk about figuring out what your macros are. So macros are going to be your protein, carb, and fats. These three components make up your total calories that you eat on a day-to-day basis. Protein, 1 gram equals 4 calories. 1 gram of carbs equals 4 calories, so they're the same. Fats, 1 gram equals 9 calories. So you can see fats are more than double calorically dense protein and carbs. Whether your goal is to build muscle and get your weight up or to lose body fat and get your weight down, let's figure out how to go about calculating your macros or what you should be eating on a daily basis. Okay, let's use me for example. So I'm 225 pounds. That is my body weight. We are going to use a number between 14 and 16. 14 would be an inactive person. So maybe you work a desk job or you're sitting most of the day. Maybe you're a truck driver. Anything where you're just sitting, you don't really move your body leisurely unless you're working out, but through your day-to-day activity, you don't move around a ton. 16 would be a very active person. So I think of athletes who are in sport, going through practice every day. Somebody's constantly on their feet. Maybe you work in a hospital, you're walking around a ton, whatever it might be. So you're picking a number between 14 and 16. I'm going to pick 15 for myself. So I do work a 9-to-5 desk job, but I am an active person outside of that. And quite frankly, I try to get up and not sit for too long at a time. So I'm going to do 15 for myself. So I'm going to take 225, which is my body weight. I'm going to multiply that by 15 for my total calories for the day. That is going to be 3,375. Based on this equation, this would be my maintenance calories. General recommendation for someone who is cutting is taking away 300 calories for weight loss. This is a starting number. And then if your goal is to gain weight, we would add 300 calories for weight gain, build muscle, whatever your goal is. Again, 3,375 is my maintenance calories. If I were to try to cut a little bit, my starting calories would be 3,075 because I'm taking away 300. If I wanted to put on some size, I would go maybe 300 calories, so 3,675 calories. This is an arbitrary number that we're just using from an equation, so this is a good starting point. I'll talk to you at the end about why this is not definitive and the absolute number for each person. So let's say I was going into a little bit of a cut. I was eating 3,075 calories. We know the total calories. How do we figure out the actual macros for these calories? How do we figure out the breakdown? So we're going to start with protein. So protein is always going to be 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's a safe number. Arbitrary number, again, it depends on the person. It depends on your lean body mass, but that is generally a safe number if muscle is your main priority. So for me, that's 225. So I'm going to have 225 grams of protein. Okay, so I know my grams for protein already. I can go ahead and write that down. 225. Again, 1 gram of protein equals 4 calories. So I'm going to take 225 and multiply it by 4. That is going to give me 900. That is my total calories from protein a day. Okay, so I have 900 cal in protein. That's important. We'll come back to that. Okay, so I have 3,075 calories. Let's do fats next. So I want my fats to be 25 to 30% of my daily calories. So let's go 25%. So I'm going to take 3,075 and multiply that by 0.25. That is going to give me 768.75. Okay, and we know that 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories. So I'm going to take this number and divide it by 9 to figure out the amount of grams of fat. Okay, and that comes out to just about 85. That is going to be my grams of fat per day, 85. We'll round this up to 769. cal of fat. To figure out carbohydrates, we're just going to do a little reverse engineering. We have our total calories for the day. We have the total calories from protein, the total calories from fat. We're going to add these together. This should give me 1669. Now we have to subtract that by 3075. So 3075 minus 1669. Okay, again, so this is my total calories per day, and this is the total calories of protein plus fat. Subtract that. We are going to have 1406. This is going to be our calories of carbs per day. We know that 1 gram of carb equals 4 calories. So just like we did with fats, we are going to divide 351.5. That is going to be our number of carbs. 375 calories, 225 grams protein, 351.5 grams carbs, and 85 grams of fat. Okay, this is going to piss me off. Okay, we use that equation to give us our starting point. So this is going to be the starting calories and macros that I'm going to track and aim for. These are going to be my goals. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to weigh myself every single day. You don't have to do it every day, but I'm going to do it every day because I want to take the weekly average. So I'm going to weigh myself every single day. I'm going to write it in a notebook, in your notes app. It doesn't matter what it is. And for the first 5 to 7 days, I'm really going to pay attention. If my goal is weight loss, let's say the first day I weigh in at 225.2. Second day, I'm 224.8. Third day, I'm 224.2. Okay, that's just for example. As you can see, I'm not losing a ton of weight day to day, but if you stack this over the course of a week, you're going to be in a good place. You could see a constant trend of weight loss here. That tells me that this calorie calculation does in fact put me in a deficit based on the amount of calories that I burn on a day-to-day basis. So this is good. If, for example, my weight wasn't moving or even going up, so let's say on the first day I was 225.2, the second day I was 225.2, the third day I was 225.6. My weight's not really moving here, okay? So based on this calorie calculation for my metabolic rate, this is not putting me in a deficit. What I would need to do is take 200, maybe 300 more calories out of this equation, and I would likely do that from carbs first, then fats, not protein. I'm never gonna pull from my protein. If anything, my protein would go higher. When your goal is muscle tissue, this is the most anabolic macronutrient. It's feeding your muscles. It's gonna help it recover. It's gonna replenish the levels, and it's gonna help you build new muscle. So protein is never gonna go down. If in any case, it would go up. If I have to go down in calories from here, maybe I have to pull 200 calories away from here. So that now becomes 28.75. I pulled away 200 calories. I know I'm going to likely pull that from carbs first, maybe fats, but preferably I would pull it from carbs. So if I just pulled away 200 calories, we know 1 gram of carb is 4 calories. I'm going to divide this by 4, right? Because that is the amount of calories per gram of carb, and we should get 50. Now my new carb goal is going to be just about 300. I just made a macro adjustment, so I'm going to track my weight and see how my weight is progressing over the course. I like to do a full week once I'm really into the weeds. At the beginning, I'll look at the first 5 to 7 days. Keep in mind, you might lose a little bit of water. So if the weight jumps down, don't freak out too much. Really look into that second week, and then you're able to take week to week to week averages. Okay, if your goal is weight loss, so minus, your goal should be 1 to 2% body weight per week. Okay, so if I'm 225, my goal should be to lose 2.25 or 4.5 pounds per week on the most aggressive side. I've had plenty of weight cuts where I'm losing 1 to maybe 1.5 pounds per week, and I felt pretty great. I could see my body visually changing, and I also felt like I was eating a good amount of food, but clearly still being in a deficit because I was losing 1 to 1.5 pounds per week. So this seems to be a happy place for me. Textbook definition, 2.25 to 4.5 based on my body weight to be safe to retain muscle. Obviously, that's going to be different for each person. You know, someone who's 6'3", 225 is going to hold the weight different and have a different weight composition than somebody who's 5'9", 225. So keep that in mind. That's really the reason why this is just an arbitrary number, an arbitrary equation, because two people with the same weight do not have the same metabolic rate. Body composition plays a huge part in that. So again, that's why we're tracking the weight on a daily basis and then taking the weekly average to see what adjustment needs to be made. If my goal is to gain weight, so I'm going up, my goal would be 1 to 2 pounds per week. Okay, that's to ensure that I'm gaining muscle. Obviously, your workouts need to be productive. You need to make sure that your strength is progressing as well, because if you're just putting on weight and your strength isn't progressing, that's not really a sign that you're putting on muscle. You could be putting on bad weight. I don't really think anybody wants that. So to make sure that the 1 to 2 pounds per week that you are putting on is good weight, your strength should be progressing accordingly in your workouts. Again, so if I'm here and I'm having trouble gaining weight, I just need to eat more calories. So my calories from before, my maintenance, if you can remember, was 3,375 calories, and that's maintenance. If I just ran this and ran it for a week and I didn't gain any weight, I would just add 200, maybe 300 calories, add that to the total, and I would go from there to progress accordingly. Again, I'd probably add this into carbs first, maybe into fats. Protein, I still like to keep the same. Doesn't really have too much fluctuation. You can go up a little bit to 1.2% of your body weight, but 1 gram per pound of body weight seems to be a pretty good spot for that. Okay, so now I have my macros, I have my guided number goals. I am gonna take that and just take the weekly average, and that is it. Now I'm just using weekly average to tell where my body is at, where my metabolism is working, how fast it's going or how slow it's going, and then I'm gonna use that to adjust the macros that I'm taking in on a daily basis.